honestly, this kind of feels like when we were in the military and you'd move around, you get to a new place and you're,
Hmm.
as a kid, you're worried about the, fitting in and learning all the new places and, but there was always a feeling you got at the end when your room would be empty, you're you're in the vehicle and you're ready to drive to
Hmm.
the next place. And honestly, I kind of got that feeling again um, as we started to wrap up this season
Hmm.
and got through our last recordings, uh, and I mean, first off, Joe, thank you for being a part of this journey uh, because you and I have sat down together now for um,
Almost a decade at this point. Roughly 1/3 of our lives.
well, and not to mention that, but think of uh, so 80 episodes
Hmm.
roughly, right? Not all of them were an hour long, but you know,
A good chunk of them. Over
many,
half.
yeah, many of them were, and uh, there's pre and post conversations. So
Hmm.
I mean, I would say we've easily tripled the amount of time invested
Oh.
in doing this.
Oh, definitely. And again, thank you for doing everything you do for this show. I know when we were invited to Switch the Envelope's 100th episode and you couldn't make it and I was on there and I referred to you as the mom of this relationship where I just come in and do the fun dad stuff and edit the work and I call it a day and I get to like make some witty banter here and there, but you're the one doing the planning. You're the one doing the marketing and helping find guests for the show, and that is a lot of time and dedication that you're putting this on top of everything else that you're doing in your life. So again, like just being able to hang out with you as much as I do because of the podcast is phenomenal. I don't think we've talked about it in the show very much, but one of the things that we did a lot back in the ghost busting era that we had in our lives is that us and some of our fellow Ghostbusters would, like I felt like every day we would go on Google Hangout back when it was called Google Hangout, and we would just sit around for a few hours talking to each other, playing Cards Against Humanity. And when we left that group and that went away, and we were hanging out still quite a bit in person because you weren't married yet, you didn't have kids. I was perpetually single.
It's a
So
perk. That's a
yeah,
perk. Yeah.
it's there. And we were able to hang out a lot. And now our lives have both changed. And driving from where I live to where you live isn't as like it's not feasible to do it as frequently as we used to. And being able to have this show with you is a way that we still get to do, the things we love doing every week. So
I mean,
I'm incredibly thankful we have this.
I will say I'm very thankful for it as well because calling back to this era that you mentioned
Hmm.
that kind of spurned this whole idea. It was you and I talking about you know different properties and if there was ever like 20 or 30
Hmm.
minutes in a car ride, there would be a phone getting dialed and um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean it, it's allowed us to continue that, but also experience some once in a lifetime things, at the same time. And the guests are a big part of that, obviously. Like you never
Hmm.
who you and I have said this multiple times. We never would have thought that we'd have a chance to sit down with people who
No. Mm.
we've played their games, we've read their
Yeah.
comics,
We've watched their movies.
we've watched their
And we got to have them on the show. We got to talk to them and ask like some of the I don't know, not like burning Frank Costanza talking to Steinbrenner for the first time type questions. Uh we're not mad that someone got rid of Daryl Strawberry, but uh God, yeah, it was just and at times trying to talk to them, and I found myself like having to really think about what I say so I don't sound like an idiot. And many times I still sounded like an idiot. Uh,
But hey, you got to remember,
mhm,
Joe, this isn't a job. As much as some
mhm,
aspects of it can feel like a job, this isn't our career, you know.
mhm,
And hell, the nervousness has hit all of us in a different way.
mhm.
Um, and we never really know what episode is going to happen, but like you know about this, and folks, you won't know this story. The folks listening, or the audience, as our friend Lou Temple would call it. Um, I almost had, well, I did have a nervous breakdown the week that we interviewed
Mhm,
Josh Sawyer, and
mhm,
I told they told Joe and Chelsea at the time that uh, I used to play video games and I would see these people's names in the credits and I would remember them.
mhm.
And so you have someone who has molded experiences that you've enjoyed for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And for me, that was something I took very seriously, and I still had a great time. It was still
Mhm.
that was like the fastest hour and a half, 2 hours of my life. That holy shit was that?
It did. It was 4 Wisconsinites just talking about stuff, and it was great. But, yeah, like, I remember the texts I was getting from you, and I think eventually you actually called me about it, which, in our age and the way, we millennials communicate, phone calls are not frequent things. We pretty much do texting when we're not, recording or actually in person with each other. So, it was at that moment I realized you were legitimately incredibly nervous because sometimes, like, over text, something's lost in translation, and, like, I could, like, yeah, like, Mark's excited, but maybe he's playing up that, like, he's like, he can't handle what's going on right now, but no, like, you could not handle that we were gonna be able to sit down and talk with Josh Sawyer for an extended period of time.
Oh, it was truly like the '60s and the girls in the front row of the Beatles. You know, they're just losing their goddamn minds, and um, combined with like work stress stuff going on with my actual job during that week, it all came to the forefront, and it just became this beast. And
Mhm.
I gotta give a hats off because this episode is also kind of thanking our guests, but also thanking
Yeah.
uh, you know my friend Chris, who helped introduce us to Josh,
Mhm.
because him and I, he's been listening to the show since day one, and he messaged me once and he said, "Hey, I just wrapped up this episode," and I think it was either RPG
Mhm.
part one or maybe the side stitch before that.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey, I was listening to this. I know Josh Sawyer," and I went, "Obsidian Entertainment, Josh Sawyer,
Mhm.
Fallout New Vegas,
But
Josh Sawyer."
the guy who nearly died in the desert doing research, Josh Sawyer?
he, as soon as he told me that, I was like, he goes, "So Chris says, you know, he's probably going to be 50-50." And I go,
Mhm.
based on Josh and his personality and what I know about him, um, I go, "That's fine.
Yep.
I'll take 50-50
Mhm.
any day of the week."
And, normally, I mean, you're a never tell me the odds sort of guy anyway. So it's like, "Hey, you just ask."
Oh man, when he told me that Josh was in, it was like a Christmas present, man. That was unbelievable. And
Mhm.
and you know, it wasn't just all about guests during season one, but I want to give an incredibly like huge thank you to Dean Bahar.
Mhm.
And we've referenced him a lot on this show. Um, and he was an absolutely wonderful guest. And once again, it was someone who is intimately acquainted with stuff that you and I have watched and
Yeah.
appreciated and are big fans of. And
Mhm.
um, and and we had a chance to do a discovery call with him before the actual conversation.
Mhm.
And I mean, Joe, you remember that call? We were
I do. Yeah, it was we were hanging out, in your car, and we wanted to have some privacy, so we had to get away for a bit. We gave it a call, and just he was on his way to, the San Diego Toy Convention.
It
Was
was,
that weekend.
I thought it was, Pasadena, wasn't it?
Pasadena, that's what it was, yeah,
Yeah,
Pasadena,
yeah,
the Pasadena Toy Convention, and we were geeking out about that over
yeah,
just, uh, how he views, like, toys as, like, art through the years, and you can
yeah,
see how the craftsmanship that goes into them and how that just keeps getting better and better and better and more intricate, and the appreciation that we share for that was just, again, like, such a fun side of him that I didn't know existed because, you how often do you get the opportunity to talk to people that you've been watching in movies like that?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not at a like granted, like I've been to conventions where I've met other people. Like I remember my first like celebrity experience was meeting William Shatner at a Wizard World, and he, as you know, he's getting up in age, and this
yeah.
was even like what, almost
10
10
years?
years ago now, and so he's
He's
still
80.
like, yeah,
He's
like
80 then, yeah.
yeah, he was 80, still doing conventions. So freaking William Shatner is just awesome. And I was in line to talk to him for probably like 40 minutes before I
Yeah,
got to him. And I was the last one because I went to the wrong line at first. And so I was in that line for like a while before I admitted, I'm an idiot. I'm in the wrong spot and went to where I was supposed to go. And so by the time I got to him, basically he had the energy to say thank you.
yeah,
And who can blame him? Man's in his 80s. He's traveling everywhere doing this. He's talking, meeting with fans. And so being able to have someone that's normally you think the accessibility is going to be at like conventions like this, and
yeah.
being able to have their attention for almost 2 hours was it just felt unheard of.
Well, I think what this whole process did for me was, it actually made me feel bad about some of the misconceptions that I had about certain celebrities, and that's not because I, hated celebrities or anything, but some of my interactions were like the ones you mentioned. I was looking forward to meeting Dan Aykroyd my entire life, and by the time I was actually able to meet him, this guy had been traveling on a tour bus halfway across the country to chill out in a liquor store in Chicago, and he puts on his Aykroyd veneer for the conversation that when he welcomes everybody to the event, right?
Hmm.
But the exchange was the same. I got to talk to him for maybe 2 minutes. I got to tell him thank you for
Yeah.
for being a big part of my early life,
Hmm.
and he's there for business,
Yeah.
but the conversations we've got to have with people on this show,
Hmm.
I think, and this is a kind of a narrative choice that you and I came to, was that we did not want to just go, movie to movie, show
No.
to show,
Mm-mm.
because most of the time, and you've heard guest after guest after guest say this, I didn't think anyone cared about the stuff you're asking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
But it's you. Like, we're asking about the stuff that is, like, what makes you you. That's the big thing.
yeah,
Like, yeah, we get you on screen, we get you, maybe even just, like, you promoting your work, and that's what it seems to be like, that's the now, and that's what people seem to care about, but it's like, well, we care about that. We wanna obviously, because we like you and your work, but, like, we wanna do more than just that. We wanna figure out more about you and how you got into what you're doing, what makes you tick. What are your opinions on water chestnuts? We need to know these things.
oh man, the water chestnuts joke. I'm
Yeah.
happy that it came up again on the Stephanie episode,
Yeah. Mhm.
because Stephanie totally bought in, and
Mhm.
I love it how she did the standard
Is it like a comedian?
comedy.
Yeah, like, brings it
Yeah,
back at the end.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You reference the joke,
Mhm.
but for folks that may be surprised by that episode with the commentary on chestnuts, water chestnuts, like when we used to write out every episode in a way that allowed us to know kind of what the flow of it was.
Mhm.
It wasn't scripted, and it wasn't you have to say this thing, but we outlined it all.
Oh, yeah.
We- And God, we did that for what, almost
God.
35 episodes, I think.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easy the first 35.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And whenever we would have other podcasts join us, or if we
Mhm.
had guests join us, we'd always slip in thoughts on water chestnuts in the show notes. It would be like
Mhm.
towards like it'd be like introductions, and then uh you know um like our brief,
Mhm.
like it would say like Mark doesn't like to go through tollways or something,
Mhm.
stupid things like that, and then it would say thoughts on water
Water
chestnuts.
chestnuts. And so many people would just gloss over it. Like some people are just like, wait a second, we're talking about Firefly. What are we doing with water chestnuts here? Was that a part of it? Was that a reference I've just missed? What's going on? And sometimes it'd be brought up when we were like just doing like little pre-show banter stuff. And sometimes it's completely like no one's like, nope, they'll bring it up if they want to bring it up, and they never seem to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun that Stephanie actually talked about like, so what's the deal with water chestnuts?
Now I was like, oh
Oh,
yes,
yes, finally.
been waiting for this for
Mhm.
months. Yeah. Oh man, and speaking of Firefly, man, it's hard to believe how long ago that was.
Wasn't it though? Like, holy crap. Like that was what, probably our what, 4th week into podcasting?
I
Maybe
think
5th?
I think Firefly, because we started off like a lot of shows do. We
We
we put
did.
out
Mhm.
we put out 5 episodes,
Yep.
right away.
Yep.
And
Bing bang boom.
I actually I'd actually really like to talk about that for a moment, but I'm trying to think here. I think Firefly Week was like 2 months, I think. Yeah, about
Okay.
two months into doing
Mhm.
this. Um, and for us, it was the most ambitious thing we'd done with the show to that point,
To
because
date. To that date. Yeah. Mhm.
we'd never worked with another show.
Mhm. Let
So
alone
there was
3 other shows.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it wasn't like we went with the first people that responded either.
No. Mhm.
Like it was probably, I think I reached out to like a dozen shows.
Mhm.
And when people were responding, I had a thought in mind with what show they would be a part of, right? And then that's what kind of led us to measuring the score,
Mhm.
with Chris and Leslie a lot.
Which,
And
can't wait to do can't wait to work with a lot of the people we've worked with again, but fuck, do I like working with Chris and Leslie a lot.
oh,
Holy crap, those 2 were fun.
it just makes you wish we lived
Mhm.
closer to them. We're on opposite ends of the
Yeah.
Midwest.
I mean, yeah, for 2 reasons. 1, Chris and Leslie a lot. 2, warmth.
Yeah.
Because 'Cause we've entered the season in Wisconsin where the air just hurts your face.
It's very true. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like
Mhm.
it was incredible to meet them, because they were actually the first show that we recorded for that series.
Mhm.
So for that Firefly week, we did 3 full episodes, and we had never done 3 episodes in a week, let alone two, because we did our shorts and then we did the main episode.
Yep.
So yeah, Chris and Leslie first. Then we hooked up with Jesse and Ricky D of
Mhm.
Twist My Arm and
Yep.
the Sudden But Inevitable for the TV
Mhm.
show. And it was really fun to just connect with people who are
Yeah.
as big
Mhm.
of fans of something as we were.
Mhm.
Um, and that kind of is to your point about how, like, Dean Bahar could be a career nerd like us. Well,
Yeah.
you're going to find other people that have enjoyed the same
Mhm. The same
media that you
stuff.
did.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, and then
Mhm.
Sean of Cheap Seat Reviews was like a lightning rod, because Serenity is like one of his favorite movies, and
Mhm.
I just happened to search through Twitter and I found a few shows, and there was a Twitter post where somebody specifically says, or actually I think it was Sean himself on a post that said, "Serenity is my favorite movie. I would love to talk about it with other people."
Yep. Like,
And uh,
aha!
yeah, it's like, are you kidding me? Of
The
course.
universe has spoken.
Yeah. And been friends with Sean ever since, man. The
Mhm.
guy's amazing. I love getting to work with him now
Yeah.
in several episodes. It's
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, and you at least got to work with him for several full episodes where I had to hide in my basement due to a tornado,
very true.
in the middle of recording,
Yeah,
which thankfully did not touch my apartment.
yeah, 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 yeah. Literally acts of God occurring during recordings. Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the first few episodes,
Hmm.
because obviously we started off with Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We, we knew that it was going to be uh, probably the most nervous episode we recorded on our own because
Hmm.
it
It
took
was the
us a long
first
time.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that joke in the beginning where we're saying like, oh, is the red dots blinking? Does that mean it's
Mhm,
going?
exactly.
And both of us know what's going on. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
we were I was so nervous to
Didn't know how to
see.
start it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just that experience when we first
Hmm.
recorded over Zoom was I, I don't I don't think I've felt that way since that first episode.
Mm-mm.
Like you're sitting there and you take the leap finally.
Yeah. And I mean, there have been different nerves throughout, because obviously you talked about like you literally had a nervous breakdown before Josh Sawyer came on.
Yeah.
One thing we have batted around again is the number of hosts on the show and who we could have on, whether it be friends or family members. And one thing that we always worry about is, you know, we don't worry about like the banter we have with each other because we can play off each other for days.
Yeah.
But like
Because we
will the
have.
con we literally have. We've stayed up for days straight. And this man has hit me with German techno when he promised me like soothing ambient noises in hotel rooms we've had to share.
And to
Um
someone, it is.
it is. And to us, it is. But yeah, like there's that nervousness. So like even like, when you work with other pods, like yeah, you've listened to their shows before, you obviously record with them, but like, you never know how you're really going to mesh with each other until you start recording. So there's always that too. And and then, also on that note, incredibly thankful that Chelsea was able to join us this season for as much as
Mhm.
she did. And it just felt really good having her on because again, as was brought up, Chelsea and I were roommates in college, but like we met before we were roommates. We knew each other for a year before we moved in with each other. And I remember like the first night I met Chelsea was having a party at my apartment, and I meet her for the first time, and she instantly, like, says, "Is that, like, your fucking copy of Wind Waker over there? Because I fucking love Wind Waker." And I'm like, "This is the best person in this entire fucking room right now." Just talking about that, and we have been incredible friends ever since. So, being able to have her on the podcast and have her share her opinions. And again, same boat where we've left college and we don't have the amount of time we had with each other anymore. And being able to hang out with her fairly regularly with her on the show was something that I will always be thankful for because I'm just always thankful for our friendship in the first place, let
Yeah.
alone being able to have this on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely, transformed how the conversations kind of flowed. I mean,
Hmm.
we would have times where not saying it's like, dry or anything, but
Yeah.
you and I obviously could talk about these properties for
Hmm.
days on end, and we've done that a lot,
Yeah.
but I like to refer to Chelsea as kind of like a combo breaker for the two dudes having a podcast thing.
Yep.
You know, she
Hmm.
she really would jump in at times and kind of uh, you know, just completely adjust the way the flow of the
Mhm.
conversation was going, and it was so refreshing. And
Yep.
when we go back and listen to episodes for either quality or for show notes or anything,
Mhm.
it, there's a lot of people that listen to their own shows, but when you're enjoying listening to a review of your show because you're
Mhm.
trying to do production stuff for it, and you're like
Yeah.
sitting there and you're laughing at stuff, and you're like, this is me talking. Why am I laughing at something I experienced?
Mhm.
But I did a lot with hearing the three of us just chat about things,
Mhm.
and for folks that may not know this, Chelsea isn't necessarily stepping down, but she will have more of a reduced role,
Mhm.
in the next season. And it's life
Yep.
happens, and
Mhm.
so we don't know how much more we'll be able to feature her in episodes, but she'll still join us when there's
Yep.
good topics that she's a big fan
Mhm.
of, and
Yeah.
so
And with a disclaimer to that, Chelsea is not dying.
no,
Want
not
to
at
throw
all.
that out there. Chelsea's alive and well.
Not at
It's
all.
it's just as like life happens. Things get thrown your way. Chelsea's just getting perpetually busier and busier as the day goes on, and she has a lot. She just has a lot on her plate right now. So it made sense for her to step down from a regular role to semi appearances. And again, she will still be attached when we return for season 2, just not in the same manner that she was this season.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and to your point about, when you work with other shows and you're not quite sure how things are gonna mesh and
Hmm.
everything, that was a big part of bringing her in, was that we were like, "Who could we have join us that would work well with what we're doing here?"
Hmm.
And, it was incredible to think that, that was never really a question with
No.
Chelsea. Just
Mm-mm.
kinda, "Here's the runway. This is what you're
Hmm.
landing on. See what you can do with it," and she did really well with it,
Yeah,
and
she just fucking grabbed the sticks and steered the plane because
yeah.
Chelsea's a fucking machine and she's awesome. So,
Yeah,
mhm,
which actually reminds me of somebody else here, for a moment, to talk about someone who joined this show. He was our first guest, Doug Eberly.
fucking Doug, man. Holy shit, Doug Eberly.
That was a situation
Mhm,
where you and I are both part of this Seinfeld soup posting meme group on Facebook,
mhm. 2.0 now,
2.0.
which may go up to 9.0 in reserve. We don't
Yeah,
know.
because Facebook keeps giving it the axe. Uh, that was a scenario where, like, you and I were trying to formulate like an internet history series, which just never got
Mhm.
off the ground. It's hard to talk to other communities that made memes for some reason.
Yeah, we don't know why. Like, we're just making funny pictures. Why not talk about it? But okay, I
Yeah,
digress. Mhm,
yeah, no idea why. Uh, but when we were talking to Doug that first time, you can tell that we were all kind of
mhm.
mutually having a really good time with
Yeah.
the topic and the
Mhm.
banter, and after we got off that call, we were just talking to Doug. And we're like, Doug, we would love to just talk to you about anything,
Yeah.
let alone this.
Mhm, and I think we talked to Doug for, like, a good hour after we were done talking.
Yeah,
We
we did.
Yeah,
We
mhm,
did. Yeah, because the episode for a quote unquote full episode,
mhm,
I think that episode was what, maybe like 50 minutes because of the Zoom
yep,
stuff that we talked about, because I
mhm.
didn't have a full license and could only record for like 45 minutes. Um, so it was a short episode, but yeah, then we were just talking for literally like 90 minutes after the call. I'm like, holy shit, we need to get this guy
Yeah.
back in.
Mhm,
Um,
and yeah, Doug's come back, what, twice now since this first episode?
he's been back twice, and
Mhm,
technically he's been a part of 5 total episodes
yeah,
of season 1.
mhm,
And I mean, that was just such a good surprise. Uh, and I
mhm,
mentioned it in the episode that, like, it's crazy to think that someone who lives halfway across the country has such an adoration for the same things that you do.
mhm.
And so, I will say this: as far as the show goes, when we named it a nerd podcast, we knew that it was about being like pop culture nerds.
Mhm.
But other people, we found, as they saw it, they'd look at it and they go like, "These guys are nerds."
Yeah,
And we're like, "Yeah, but we're like
like,
we're
fun nerd.
functional. We're
We are.
functional
We are
nerds."
functional nerds. Mhm. Like, I have my Green Ranger helmet on my shelf, I don't wear it to work
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
But even, like, think of that, like, they're like nerds, thinking of, like, early episodes that really set the tone for that, one where I think we really, really hit our stride in, like, establishing a good foothold of the show, and I know that because when people would ask you, like, where to start listening to, you would point in this direction too, and that was episode 3, Robot Sex,
Oh, oh, good
and
lord.
it is a surprisingly entertaining and not just a odd episode, and I get this from listeners, and one listener in particular, who, which by the way, I know, I believe I said I am perpetually single. I am currently not single,
Yeah.
and my girlfriend listened to this while she was at work, and I think the comment she told me was, "I couldn't believe I was listening to something called Robot Sex at Work, but I listened to it because I wanted to hear more of the podcast, and I don't understand why it was so good." And
Well,
and I'm like, "You know what? I hope that explains the whole podcast, that you don't understand why it's so good, but"
let's break down that episode for a minute. So we started calling those our quote unquote globetrotter episodes,
Mhm.
right? Where we look at an idea or concept,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
and we go back and we try to find the earliest examples of them.
Mhm.
And so,
Sometimes accounting for inflation.
yeah, yeah, accounting for inflation, as our early jokes revolved around. But in that case, it was the first one where like we went back and we tried to find like the earliest influences, whether it was literary, any kind of media, and it ended up becoming this bizarre, you know, balance of like history and
Mhm.
uh, at the
And,
same,
like, history and culture, like,
yeah,
all over the place. Yeah.
history,
Mhm.
culture, and you and I navigating the uncomfortable notion of making love to an artificial
Life form.
life
Yeah.
form. Yeah.
Mhm.
And oddly, it ended on a wholesome note.
It did. And again, like, if you're coming into the game, here in the 8th inning of things, and it's almost over, and you haven't listened to some of the earlier stuff, one, do skip the side stitch about handheld gaming, because
Oh,
that is just me, uh, kind of awkwardly ranting about things for 45 minutes, and go to the Robot Sex episode and definitely give that one a listen, and it'll like, you'll be able to tell it's an earlier on episode because Mark and I are still getting used to putting this together, but
yeah.
I think, again, like everyone else, you'll be pleasantly surprised over the content of that episode, and it's not just sci-fi smut. Like, there's
Yeah,
which maybe in season 2 we come back with sci-fi smut as an episode title, and we see what we get, see what we bring in.
I mean, speaking of sci-fi smut, or if you want to call it sci-fi, one of the episodes that I ended up enjoying a lot more than I thought I would was when we looked at Stallone's Judge Dredd.
Oh, yeah, I feel like watching, like, when we talked about, Judge Dredd, and I remember we both, like, rewatched the movie to kind of, like, we haven't watched it in years. It's a running joke in both the movie industry and the comic book industry, and basically every conversation that's a part of, like, you make fun of the fact that Judge Dredd was just a silly piece of shit, and the more we thought about it, we are like, "Is this a good movie? I think this is a good movie."
The longer I watched it, the more I thought, why was I making fun of this movie so bad for so long?
Yeah, and I guess it's probably in fact that it just Sylvester Stallone was attached to it, and you get that Stallone-ness that he has in every movie, certainly. He won't keep his helmet on.
No,
Uh, he definitely, like, has to have some sort of romantic interest because all the action movies need that sort of thing, but everything else around that typical Stallone movie stuff is good,
I was going to
and they
say,
don't even highlight the Stallone stuff that much.
you realize that you should be making fun of all the other Stallone movies, not
Yeah.
not so much just Dread. I mean,
No, go make fun of
Judge Dredd.
Rambo.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. I mean, anything other than Judge
mhm.
Dredd. Uh,
Yeah,
that was like
mhm.
such a pleasant surprise to see some, uh, but
Mhm,
looking at the numbers and all that, we've hit some milestones along the
mhm,
way. Um, None of which I'll mention here because I mean, the numbers don't really matter to a whole lot of people,
mhm.
and I mean, we've managed to get some pretty good traction for a show that didn't exist in March.
Yep.
But as far as tying numbers together to specific things that we've covered, uh, I am still kind of amazed by the response to our Trey Parker and Matt Stone series.
Yeah. Like
Because
that just kept getting traction.
well, when we made that series, we knew we wanted to split it up into TV, well, South Park and non-South Park, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this was also only like the second episode, I think, that Chelsea was a part of too.
Yeah.
So we were still kind of figuring out our dynamic. For original content that we've made for this show, those are still that's like still the most popular stuff we've done outside of interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm blown away by that because it's validation that we were fans of things for the same reasons that other people were.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of I'm not going to get emotional, but I thought I was for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of the validation of what we've been doing on this show, is that you keep finding
Mm-hmm.
out that like you like something and other people did too.
Mm-hmm.
And that appreciation isn't always stated. It's you have to get it out of people, you know.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and those episodes, man, they just kind of showed that there's obviously there's fans of South Park,
Mm-hmm.
but it's their movies that's the most popular part of that series. Is
Yeah, over the South Park bit is their movies. Mm-hmm.
their film history is what people have been coming back for, and that episode, that series has endured for the whole
Mm-hmm.
season 1. So yeah.
Yeah. Thinking looking back on some of the favorites to do, like favorite episodes. Um Outside of our guests, because I have to say, like, hands down, being able to talk to people was phenomenal. And we can talk about guests a little bit more in a bit, if we want to circle back to it. But um being able to do the fan choice episode on Gundam was probably one of my favorite just single episodes to put together, and being able to take my love of that franchise and pour it into an episode because someone else wanted to hear about it, out of kind of like curiosity, just because I think the message was that's kind of a hole in their nerddom, and they wanted to know more about it, and I got to basically fill that void in their nerddom with everything I could pack into it as much as I could. And it got a full episode. It got a side stitch. I think that was the first blog I got to write for the podcast was on Gundam, and I just loved doing everything for that week on Gundam so much.
Yeah, it's actually I know I wasn't going to talk about numbers. um that, so okay, couple things about that Gundam series. So Chris, who connected us to Josh Sawyer,
Mhm.
he didn't even know about our Twitter page. So he finds his way to the Twitter page.
Mhm.
We're running this contest on, hey, like this post, retweet it, whatever,
Mhm.
and that'll enter you into the contest. Whoever wins this is a digital giveaway thing. You can pick an episode that we produce and make on your behalf.
Yep.
And I used a random number generator. I took all the people that were, in the entries for that. I think there was
Mhm.
like 50 or 60 people. Thrown into a random number generator. Somehow, our friend Chris is the winner.
Yeah.
He ends up being the random number.
Mhm.
So I go to the profile. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the photo. I'm like going,
Huh.
that that looks like someone I know. And sure enough, it was Chris. And and the funniest part about it was when I said, "Hey, you don't have to give us an answer right away. Just
Mhm.
think it over. This is already
Yeah.
weird that you won."
Mhm.
But then he comes back to me. He goes, "If I had a blind spot in my nerddom, it's Gundam. Gundam." And I'm like, "You're shitting me, right?"
Mhm.
Like, please tell me that you don't have like an NSA friend who's like, dedicated to fucking with. And he's like, no, I've always wanted to get into Gundam. And I'm like, yeah, seriously? So not only does he have that blind spot,
Mhm.
it turns out a lot of other people did too. There was comments that we got on Facebook, YouTube,
Mhm.
Twitter, even Instagram. People are like, I've heard of Gundam, never watched it. I have no idea what it's about.
Mhm.
And our series kind of helped bridge the gap. So people found their way to
Yeah.
Gundam because of us. And uh, as into your point of the numbers, the Gundam episodes are actually in like the top like 25-30% of shows we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
so there's a lot of people that have been making their way to those,
Mhm.
and I think it speaks to how we kind of went down an anime track for a little bit
We
there.
did. Mhm.
Yeah, because we got into that. We talked to, oh my God, such a I was kind of beside myself with Kylie
Mhm.
Bear the entire time.
Oh, yeah. How couldn't you be?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
Kylie Bear kind of helped us navigate into that a bit because he's like the king of Japanese voiceover
Mhm.
coming to the US. And talking to him kind of opened that gateway for me to kind of go back into anime and start looking at stuff that I'd never watched or hadn't watched in a long time.
Mhm.
And so yeah, then we started having more episodes in that vein. We even kind of got into Castlevania for a bit there,
Yep.
modern anime, of course.
Mhm.
And uh, and so we kind of found a niche within our own niche, that was there.
Yeah.
And it's just I never saw that coming.
Mhm. And yeah, because again, like, someone who comments on his Asianness, not a big anime lover and not a big anime person.
No,
And and I can understand why. Anime is vast. Many of it is outside of America's cultural understanding. And
it's
it
just
just
different.
it
Yeah, it's just
is.
different.
Mhm. Yeah.
It. I mean, even it's the same thing between like
Mhm.
like North American RPGs versus Asian RPGs. They're
Mhm.
totally different types of games.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's also it's the same reason why, like, we have to adapt a British TV show to an American one. We can't just show the British TV show here because, it's not all gonna land. I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that, a lot of people who absolutely loved The Office will think the original British version is unwatchable.
A- And you're true. You're right to an extent. I know there's some people that
Mhm.
it's just too dry. It's way
Yeah.
too dry for them,
Mhm.
and that's understandable. I can get some of that.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah. I just feel like we have to
Mhm.
thank Kylie Bear because that was for. Sorry, Joe. I got to tell the story. That episode started off
Quite
in
rocky.
it was we felt the most like amateurs that I think we've ever felt like, and Joe had a licensing issue
Mhm.
with Google Meets just before the meeting, and he was like going, "It's going to be fine. I think it should still work. The meeting is still there," and
Mhm.
and we just went with it, or I should say, I made a contingency plan, but we went. So
Mhm.
anyway, like Kylie Bear jumps on, and Google Meets won't let you record.
No, the button's just gone. It's missing.
Just the record
Just
button's gone.
yep.
So we're sitting there with Kyle, and I'm like, you know, I'm just kind of talking through things. And at that point in time, we thought it was just an issue with the
Mhm.
licensing. We had no idea what the problem was. So like, I was I was doing the stretch motion with Kyle, and we were having a good conversation. But
Mhm.
like, at that point in time, I was like, what's happening? We got Kyle on the line. He's being gracious as hell. He's like being
Mhm.
the best guest ever.
Yep.
And then finally, I was like, Joe, I already bought a license. Let's just do this.
Yep, let's just roll with it.
And it ended up being a great episode.
Mhm.
But that I just remember that like I was like sweating through my chair, like going, "What is happening?
Happening.
Like this can't happen right now."
Mhm.
And
No.
and he's a rock star. Kyle
Oh, yeah.
was such an amazing guest, and a true story. I actually still check out his live streams like once a week
Oh,
for his
nice.
video
Yeah.
games. Yeah.
I mean, I still listen to the Intergalactic Boombox every week because it's just
Yeah.
fucking fun. Like it's I listen to it on my way to work and I get the whole thing on my drive into work. 15 minutes of my day right off the bat is spent with Kylie Bear once a week. And
Yeah.
it's fun. It's a great
Yeah.
time. Mhm.
That's a great show. It takes him a long time to make, but
Yeah.
he's turning it out, and they're really fun
Mhm.
15-minute, like, nerdy news briefs for your week. So
Yeah.
um just because I feel like we need to definitely, you know, thank some folks. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously the the conversation with Lou Temple was incredible for me. Um, Another person that I've been like a lifelong fan of because
Mhm.
of all the diverse things he's been a part of, and I actually I actually even got to speak with him because I talked to a guy who was friends with him through a Walking Dead trading card group on Facebook, and he connected me to Lou,
Of all
and
ways to connect to someone.
it was so unorthodox, yeah,
Mhm.
and I was having a really bad stretch at work when I had that call.
Mhm.
Um, so much so that when things weren't going well at work, uh, both you and Chelsea were having issues outside of the show at the same
Mhm.
time and had to bow out. Um, Lou had a very tumultuous schedule at that point in time,
Mhm.
and so we kept the call with him, and went into it solo. And I was like I don't want to reschedule him because I don't know when we're
No.
going to get him back,
Yeah.
and had that call with him, and I was I was not going into that call expecting to like almost talk to a life coach,
I
like
mean, that's what it sounded like editing the episode. Is that this guy just had so much life experience that he shared, to you and our listeners that it felt like you're at home for the holidays and you're listening to, like, your grandfather or, like, father or your very interesting uncle just talk about, like, them traveling, talk about them growing up, talking about them and everything they've done in their life, and it was just so warm and intriguing that entire time.
yeah, I seriously I don't even feel like I talked much during that episode. I just
Mhm.
basically cranked up a question and watched him
Yeah.
watched him go.
Mhm.
Um, and to that point, I mean, it was exactly what I needed. I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
Like I got off that call and I'm like, Lou Temple just gave me his philosophy on how to celebrate death and how to be thankful for waking up every day. And I'm like, I dreaded waking up every day for almost 2 weeks. And it's just totally wasn't expecting it.
Mhm.
And speaking of not expecting things, send a message to Greg Sestero on Facebook
Yep.
early in the season,
Mhm.
never expecting it to go anywhere.
No.
And what would happen but Greg Sestero sending me a message it's like 9:30 at night.
Mhm.
I'm in bed. I'm like ready to go to bed, like melatonin induced coma.
And
And
suddenly, "Oh, hi, Mark."
and here's Greg Sestero saying, "Hey, message this lady at this email. She'll coordinate everything." I'm like, is this real?
Ooh.
Like, what is this right now?
Mhm.
And we had to play a game of cat and mouse for, roughly about 2.5 months, three
Mhm.
months.
Better part of that, yeah.
But it worked out.
It did.
It was actually Greg
Like
Sestero.
Sestero? And not a weird Tommy Wiseau, like, set up
No.
somewhere.
A- and once again, the room is another one of those properties inside of
Mhm.
our catalog that people have flocked to.
Yeah.
They've
This
really enjoyed it.
it has just become this cultural phenomenon of someone being able to, 1, absolutely pour their heart into something, and it being your first experience trying to do something like this, and it clearly just like falling flat on its face. And fucking A, does he turn that frown upside down and make it into something?
He sure does. He
Mm-hmm.
sure does. And almost everybody involved did too over time.
Yeah.
Greg Sestero is a testament to the fact that he's thankful for everything that's happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most humble people I think I've ever had the chance to connect with. Um, from an entertainment perspective. Obviously, Lou Temple is extremely humble and a
Mm-hmm.
great dude, but Greg, he really took the ball and ran with it, and he found out that he could be really passionate about stuff in entertainment, despite the room and how much of a crazy thing it was.
Yeah.
And he's ended up becoming an amazing writer, and now he's directing his own movies. I mean, I just want to give that dude a hat tip for
Mm-hmm.
everything he's accomplished, because um, just a great guest. I mean, God, he told us he only had so much time, and then because his internet died at the hotel, because we had
It
to
did.
we had to edit this out. We
Yep.
lost like 15 minutes because the internet was down. And he's like, "Hey, look, I know I told you guys only a half hour, but you, I, you wouldn't even have enough for a show." So he
Yeah.
gave us like an hour of his time, and I just can't thank him enough for
Mm-hmm.
that. And the same goes for Dilip Rao.
Yeah.
Like,
Fucking hell was that fun. And that's another one where I feel like it was, since again, like I didn't get to be there for Lou Temple, like you could give Dilip Rao 3 words and he could just run with life experiences and thoughts and ideas on those 3 words for the next like 20 minutes. Like he just has so much going on with his life and his intelligence, and it was just, I feel like it was the easiest podcast to do because we could give him like like one like prompt and he would just, I got it, let's roll with it.
yeah,
And hearing again, like I am so incredibly thankful that he holds like not only the opinions that he does, but also like acts on them. Like the idea that he wants to get rid of this like glossy veneer and velvet rope between the film industry and the people who, consume the films that are made by making it so that, yeah, I've been in these major motion pictures and I'm going to come onto this podcast with these guys who had just started getting it off the ground.
yeah,
And that's incredible to me that he was like, again, willing to do that when he could have just as easily ignored it, let alone even said no to it. So just like so incredibly thankful that Dilip Rao not only was able to come on, but again, like how easy wouldn't it have been for someone to come on and basically just write it off as like, okay, you've got 20 minutes, you don't get to talk about these things, and and then when it's done, it's done. I have to move on. And I feel like if he had more time in his day, he would have given it to us with the way he was talking.
yeah, and that's why I think in our marketing for that
Hmm.
episode, like we were very specific in calling him a thought leader, because he was on so many different things. Like,
Hmm.
you're going to listen to that episode, and like you're going to get stories about entertainment and movies and
Hmm.
cinema, but you're also going to get just really good life advice, for
Yeah.
talking to your parents about things,
Hmm.
and experiencing, how to make choices in your life,
Hmm.
but owning up to those things. And yeah, he was uh I'm speechless right now because of how refreshing it was to hear that
Yeah.
from him. and
Hmm.
and that was an episode where, sure, we had some things that we were going to talk about, but Dilip gave us plenty more
Yeah.
to think through. And
Hmm.
so I was really impressed with that.
Yep, and it was the first time we got to talk some good old sports ball on the podcast, which was great to hear about his spat with the Denver Broncos and how
Yeah,
he is very willing, and wanting to make amends with
yeah.
one John Elway.
Yeah, John, do the right thing, damn it. Jeez, just reach back
Just
out to delete.
let the stationary battle go and be friends with Dilip, or be at least be willing to talk with Dilip again. And
Well,
for God's sake, let's not run the government like the Miami Dolphins.
ah, heavens no. Yeah,
No.
it-
Which, by the way, why the fuck are they winning right now? What are they? They can't even suck properly. What are they doing?
I don't know.
They're gonna finish 8-8 again. We'll get nothing in the draft. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere. Like, oh hey, look, we've got a wild card run. No one gives a shit. Either win or lose so bad we can get good players. Do something.
How you know what, man? There are a couple more notes that I had here before we kind of conclude, but
Mhm.
um, I got to say the getting to reconnect with Ben Heck, that was he. I haven't laughed that hard in forever. Uh, you know, Ben Heck is an
Mhm.
established YouTuber. He's had his own technology shows about
Mhm.
making portable consoles and video game consoles, and he was incredibly fun to interact with. And it just we were the three of us were cackling the
Yeah.
entire time.
Mhm.
And so I didn't want to overlook him by any means, but that was a really
Yeah.
fun episode. And outside of him, I wanted to also give a shout out to Kevin the Critic
Yep.
and to Seamus Byrne of
Mhm.
Biteside, who helped us with Ready Player One, the 2 weeks that we did with that.
And we did mistakenly say it as Mr. Brightside, but in our defense, that would be an incredible name, Seamus. And if no one has it yet, please take it
I
because
think
you've
you
earned it.
I think you said Mr. Biteside.
I did.
I'm pretty sure I just said Biteside.
Yep. I added it there instinctively because of, the killers are fantastic. And
But Joe,
mhm.
I think on his LinkedIn it does say Mr. Biteside
That's why. Okay.
because
Very good.
Seamus Byrne is
Mhm.
Mr. Biteside.
There we go. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, those were really fun conversations.
Mhm.
Like Kevin did a really good job kind of balancing Ready Player One's literary
Mhm.
side and the
Yeah.
movie, and we kind of played off of that and worked really well together to
Mhm.
explain the nuance. Um, and getting to tap into Seamus's approach to technology and
Yeah.
getting to
Mhm.
lean on literally guys Gizmodo and CNET head editor. I mean, it was a
It's a
privilege. It
big
was
yeah.
yeah
Mhm.
to tap into that and he was calling us from Australia, of course. He lives in
Mhm.
Australia. So it was what like 9 a.m. there and
Yep.
you know
And again, the shock of, us recording this with video and then Seamus just being upside down the whole time.
yeah, totally.
It took a bit to get over it, but we got there.
Yeah. Yeah, Google just knows when you're in the other side of the world and
Mhm.
flips that upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Yeah.
and again, cannot be more thankful for all of our guests, like Dia Jamendran, who was the first of our creator spotlight, talking
Yes.
to her about her process, how she got into art, how she got into artwork, and how she's basically starting her career in the midst of the global pandemic was incredible. And of course, our series wrap up with Vince Sunico
Yeah.
and hearing from him and his enthusiasm for his work and how he just absolutely loves drawing. That's why he's been doing it for years. And again, looking forward to Loathe and that coming out and
It
how much real the thought he's putting into that character.
He could
Hmm.
easily be one of the most popular artists that I have seen who can
Hmm.
draw for comics, but doesn't have any comics he's been a part of.
Yeah.
And he's just been such a great artist, a sketch
Hmm.
artist, and a comic book artist, like drawing characters. And to see him have the following that he does,
Hmm.
I'm so happy and so proud of him because I remember seeing, I've watched his evolution through the last 12 years.
Yep.
And so, yeah, and obviously Dio is an amazing guest too, and seeing
Hmm.
her work, obviously her work's on your wall. You've got it
Yeah.
on
I've
your
got two
wall.
of them.
uh,
Hmm.
and last but not least, this one felt a bit personal for me. Um, uh, would have been another one of our quote unquote Globetrotter episodes
Mhm.
when we were joined by the Switch the Envelope
Yeah.
podcast. Jeff and Corey came on
Mhm.
over, and A Nerdtastic Voyage was one of those shows where I remember talking to Jeff and Corey fairly early on in our show's history,
Mhm.
and I was always trying to formulate an idea of like going, "You guys talk movies all day. Do you really want to talk movies with us too, or do you want
Yeah.
to do something different?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "I think we'd rather talk about. We'd like for you guys to host. You guys will come to
Mhm.
your show, and yeah, whatever you guys want to talk about, we're game." And so I I um I wrote a blog post about the nerd tide and how the tide kind of shifted, and I gave some specific points in history when that happened.
Mhm.
And as I was writing this out, I'm going, "There's so much left here to explore,"
Yeah.
and that's when we decided to do that with them.
Mhm.
And God, another episode where I think we were laughing for, you know, 2 hours straight.
Mhm. Because again, yeah, like again, like the way we could just converse and play off everyone in the virtual room was just incredible. An amazing conversation. So I'm looking forward to interacting with Switch the Envelope again. Really looking forward again. Everyone that we could, if we could go on their pods or have them back, very happy to do it. And I'm also going to say that one thing that has to happen in season 2 is we're going to have a cult horror movie episode where
Ooh.
we go to cult horror movies, and the intro is just going to be me and Chris Lott doing a power ballad duo of Power of the Night. That's how we're going to open it. It's going to sound amazingly bad, and that's I'll be ready for it.
Well, without giving anything away for season 2, um, we're obviously going to keep doing what we've been doing,
Mhm.
um, and we're not going to give any details, but um, definitely going to have some fun. We're going to have
Yep.
some good guests
Mhm.
joining us into season 2. There is going to be a bit of a break though. We're going to be
Yep.
taking off a much needed 2 or 3 weeks,
Mhm.
recollect ourselves,
Yes.
and come back strong. But
Mhm.
um,
Also,
it,
full nudity in season 2.
oh,
Um,
jeez, you
Full
betcha.
nudity. And
Yeah.
which is really a shame that we do not actually share the video recordings of these podcasts for you, or a blessing, really. You have no idea what we look like under here, and you may wanna keep that sort of mystery going in your life.
Although we are part of Spotify's video program, so
Oh. Ooh. We may get kicked
we
off of that with the full nudity bit.
you might see a little bit more than you thought. I think it'd be too self-serving to end with our "keep on dissecting" tagline.
Mhm.
Usually, how we end episodes. Um, is it a Sully desk pop right
That
now?
was a Selly Desk Pop. Last one of the season. Got it in there.
Yeah, fuck taglines. The Sully desk pop is good enough for me.
Mhm. Yep. Thanks, everyone, and, special thank you again to Stephanie Phillips for signing my comic book. You're awesome.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably the best way to end it is
Mhm.
thank you to everyone who's listened to us and who supported us up to this point. I know we can't name everybody,
Mm-mm.
um, but yeah, Sully is just as thankful. Everyone.
He is.
Um,
That's what that wine was. It was a thank you. Thank you for listening to these 2, and especially me, for I am Corgi, meaning wine.
oh man, looking forward to it, man. And once again, Joe, thanks for being a part of this ridiculous journey as
Hey,
we continue.
thanks for steering this car, man.